Mr. Rain's getting ready to go to work. We haven't had a lot of sun in the last couple of days. And silly me forgot about the apples on the dehydrator yesterday, and I let it run until 2 o'clock in the morning when I woke up, and then I remembered when I saw that our battery bank was running low. So I decided this morning I would go ahead and get a fire going out here in our little rocket stove and heat Mr. Rain's coffee up in there. And I got a lantern lit, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see this at all. So there's his coffee. Still pretty dark, hard to see, but and it's heating up there on our little rocket stove. And since I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and try cooking a bunch of other stuff on here today. And we'll see how that goes. That way I can be practiced up on using this thing. Since I'm going to be trying my best to cook this on the rocket stove, I figured I'll try to do the whole meal without any electricity, no solar. I'm getting some solar power now. Obviously it's getting charged up even though it's cloudy. But, and it wouldn't be a problem running my blender off the solar like I normally would. But I figure I'll do it this way. Might as well see this kind of as a challenge to see how well I can make these enchiladas without any electricity. Now I'm not sure about the baking process because we're not getting a lot of sun, so I don't know that I'll be able to bake them in the solar oven. So, and if I can't, then I'll have to bake them in the toaster oven, you know, hooked up to the solar power. But at any rate, I'm gonna see how much I can do without using the solar power or public power. So there's, you know, no electricity involved. It's either going to be all manual or done on the rocket stove. The thing about the rocket stove is you can use just wood scraps from the shop. You can use garden scraps. There's a lot, pine cones. I mean, there's so many different things you can burn in there. Leaves and just twigs. It's very efficient. It turns out I don't need any more tomatoes. This is plenty right here. So these are the ones I picked yesterday. And I'm glad because I'm not sure the ones that are out there right now if they're quite ripe enough. So this is what, for those of you who have never done it this way, this is what it looks like when you have fresh tomatoes. And since I'm not making really using a tomato paste or a tomato sauce per se, I'm just using fresh tomatoes. One of the things I found works really good to thicken it up is freeze-dried tomato powder. Now, it kind of gets a little clumpy in the jar, but this is a real good way to thicken up your sauces. And you're still getting tomato. I'm going to add a little of my Himalayan salt. This wasn't going to be a recipe video, but I figured I might as well show you how I throw together my enchilada sauce. A little paprika. You can see what I'm doing, which I figure is best because I don't measure. I just kind of go by look. I put in quite a bit of garlic, granulated garlic. Plus, I like using the dehydrated garlic. I like to use, anytime I'm using a fresh tomato base or even my home canned tomatoes, because my home canned tomatoes I do the same way. I just do that, add some lemon juice, and then I can them. Then I like to use a lot of freeze-dried stuff, dehydrated or freeze-dried stuff to help thicken it up, soak up the extra moisture. Dehydrated jalapenos that I did last year. Don't overdo it. But then again, when it comes to some things, in my opinion, you can't have too much. This is chili powder. That might be enough. I feel like it might not be, but we'll see. Cumin. I like lots of cumin. Red pepper flakes. Of course, this is going to depend on how spicy you like your enchiladas. We tend to like I said before in another video, we like a lot of flavor and a lot of spice. This is my mixed greens. So a whole bunch of different greens from the garden. Strawberry leaves, grape leaves, borage leaves, plantain leaves, kale. Oh my goodness, there's a whole bunch of good stuff in here. I'm not even going to remember it all. Carrot tops, all those good greens that are edible and are loaded with all kinds of minerals and yummy stuff. Or yummy stuff. Good healthy stuff that your body needs. So I add that to just about everything. So it's a good way to use up all your excess kale and beet, beet leaves, rutabaga leaves, all that. So you just dehydrate that stuff and throw it in there, especially if your family doesn't really like greens very much. This is a good way to get greens into their diet, is to, obviously eating it fresh and raw is going to be the absolute best, but the second best is dehydrated. Now, in here, what I have is the roast I cooked up in the solar oven the other day, and what's left of it. I've already used it to make a couple of, first we ate it, just as a roast. And then I made something else with it now. I can't remember what it was. Oh, barbecue beef and rice over rice. I made my own barbecue sauce, and then I cut up a bunch of the leftover roast and threw it into the sauce, and then we served it over rice. It's just so good. So what I'm doing is taking out the drippings, the broth that it made. I didn't add any water to this. And I've already taken some of this out. I used some of this broth that when I made the barbecue beef. So I did it very similar to this. It just wasn't, didn't have the more Mexican flair to it that your enchiladas obviously are going to have. So yeah, I throw that into the broth from that into my mix. And I think there was one more thing. I wanted to get a little oregano in there. This is homegrown oregano that I dehydrate myself. Use a lot of oregano and basil and sage. And so I grow a lot of those things and dehydrate it so I have it throughout the year. So I have a nice little fire going in here. One thing about the rocket stove is you have to really keep up on it. You cannot, it's basically just like, running a pressure cooker or canner. You have to keep checking it. You can't just walk away and leave it for more than a minute or two. Because you're using such small pieces, it'll burn through them fast. But now that I've got the fire going like that, this is a 2-door one, which is what I recommend, is now I can close that and damp it down a little bit so that it's not burning up as fast. Because this is getting hot. I've seen it start to boil. You see the flames? Now, the funny thing about this is when we first got it a few years ago, my husband took it out on a little fishing trip with his dad and our brother-in-law and, a few other people, and took a pot and some home canned chili, and they were laughing when he pulled that out of the back of the truck, I guess, thinking, oh, that's not going to do anything. You're not going to be able to do anything with that. And he put a big old, he had several jars of chili, and he put a big old pot on this thing, got that fire going, and in no time it had that chili nice and hot, and they were just blown away, and they were like, we got to get ourselves one of these. So it's kind of a funny story. But this cute little poker, my husband fashioned. He did all this. He actually made this poker specifically for using in this. Because obviously your regular poker that you're going to use in your fireplace or your wood stove is going to be a little bit long. You'd have to stand way back to use it. But it's cute. It's so adorable. I love it. And another thing I wanted to show you is that I have this, I have the cookie sheet there too. I don't use that for baking anymore because I use stoneware. I try not to use aluminum for cooking or baking with. That's there, you know, because it has a lip, and so hopefully it will help catch anything. I'll, you know, prevent it from rolling out onto the deck, though I've never had that happen. The reason you have this thing is so you can put long pieces like this, and you just keep pushing them in, and that's just to hold it up there. This is a metal piece here. So even if I set it right on the deck, it would be safe. But the rocket stove is insulated all the way around as well. So it's fairly safe to set on just about anything, but I still try to be as safe as possible. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off there, but it's cooking real good. So I've got the fire at it's a pretty good temperature, so I'm just going to go ahead and shut that and lock it. You can build, there's a lot of ideas out there on how to make your own rocket stove. There's some really, really easy ones that you can do with just brick. And the problem with that is it's not going to be portable. But if you're wanting something that's more fixed, then that's a really good idea. And it looks nice too. And so look that up. Yeah, you can find all kinds of designs online for that and on YouTube how people do theirs. Some people have made them with coffee cans and number 10 cans and some Quickcrete, I believe it was. So just look around. You can find some really inexpensive ways to make your own. So again, the goal here is to not even use my solar power electricity or gas generator electricity. I want to be able to do this all using fire and direct sun. Yeah, because I can't, you know, we can't, even though we have a pretty nice solar system set up. We've got a vast battery bank and a good array of panels. Because of where we live, our solar power is not dependable year round. And then as it happened last night and yesterday, even though it's summer, we got 2 cloudy days in a row, didn't really get full charge on the battery, and then me forgetting about the stuff on the dehydrator that was running on solar power, and another fan and some other things that were running. We had a lot of stuff running on it. We run our freezers, refrigerator, and all that. And so 2 o'clock in the morning, I get up and see the battery, the light flashing, meaning the battery's low. But that spurred me to say, you know what? I'm going to see how much I can do without even depending on that. And using this rocket stove, that's why we got it. We have so many different ways to cook, and that's what you got to be thinking of. You know, you can get by without having to invest in a solar system. So I'm going to let it cook for a while, and then I'm going to get to making my tortillas. Thought I'd catch a little video of this so I can show you that yes, I really do make my own tortillas. It's not a hard process. The way I may cook them might be a long process, but it's not hard. Anybody can do this. I tend to like to get creative with my tortillas. I've used dandelion flowers, I use poppy seeds, different things like that. These ones I'm keeping very simple. I find for making the enchiladas, I prefer to keep it a little bit on the simple side. So just remember, when you start making tortillas, who cares if they're perfectly round? Okay, that's how you buy them in the store. Big deal. They don't need to be perfectly round. Anyway, I've got one out there cooking right now, so I need to go out and check it. All right, this one's ready to come off. Look at that. All right, so definitely have to watch it. This is my first time trying this on making tortillas on this thing, so we'll see how it goes. And here's my nice little plate of tortillas. It was a little tricky, I have to say. Some turned out really good, and I did have a couple that burned, and I put them on the bottom because I won't use those. Like there's one there. But that's okay because Mr. Rain, he really likes to snack on those ones like that. And so I put them on the bottom because the ones on the top will be the ones that I use in the for the enchiladas. Well, I had another duh moment when I realized, wow, it's so close to lunch. And since I'm trying to do everything on this today, I might as well cook up my lunch on this. Still got a little fire going. Don't let it go out yet. I'm going to keep it going for a little bit longer. Burn it. I shut the bottom damper all the way because I'm sauteing these. So I want it to cook slower. And I've got garden grown zucchini, onion, and cayenne pepper. So that red from, oh, so excited about that cayenne pepper. Love that stuff. And then the pepper that, the green is the pepper I bought at the store. It's not a very hot pepper. It was supposed to be hot. It was labeled hot, but it's like not hot at all. It tastes more like a green pepper, but it's still good. I mean, a bell pepper. So anyway, yeah, there's my lunch cooking up. I'm not going to show this whole process of putting together the enchiladas, but I did want to show you one thing. When I went to cut up the meat for the middle of this, I realized what was left on that roast was bone, gristle, and fat with just a little bit of meat. I put that little bit of meat into the sauce and then pulled down this jar of ground beef that I canned up last year. And I've already opened it. And what you see in there, that's just the fat from the meat. It smells wonderful. This stuff right here is excellent, straight out of the jar. Easy to do. You just brown up your ground beef a little, otherwise it will stick together in a big clump. And then you pressure can it like you would any other meat. So I'm going to be putting about a spoonful of that into each of the enchiladas. I got a little bit of the sauce in there, you know, and then I usually put about 8 in here, and then I'll put the sauce over some more sauce over the top, and some more cheese. That's organic cheese right there. I've got some here. I freeze it, and then it just breaks up. I don't have to shred it or cut it. Now I can just break it up and throw it in there. And I have another one. I think I'll put another whole one, because you can't have a good enchilada without lots of cheese, buckets of cheese. All right, so I'll get these all put together, show you what they look like when they're done. Okay, see, after
so what I decided to do, instead of worrying about the solar oven, just like duh, I can put the enchiladas on the rocket stove, and I just put this grill piece on here. I actually use this on my wood stove a lot. This is what I use when I'm baking on my wood stove in the winter time and doing this very thing. So the only difference is I'm doing it out here on the rocket stove. It just needs a little more tending than my wood stove, but very cool. So I'm doing my whole entire dinner, everything I'm cooking today, on my rocket stove. This is so exciting. I'm really having a good time doing this. And I'll go ahead and, it's not hot up here yet, but I'll show you. There's a cheese in there on top, and it's starting to melt. Very cool. So this should be hot all the way through, and the cheese melted by the time Patrick gets home. All right, this is just about done, and I want to show you how it looks. Most of that cheese is melted, and it's looking pretty tasty. And you can see I set it up on that ring. Took the grill out, set it up on that ring because it was getting plenty hot. It's a little cockeyed, but it was just too hot for me to try to fix it once I realized it was already on there. I got the fire kind of cooled down now, which is fine. I might go ahead and stick a couple little pieces in there just to keep it sort of smoldering for a little bit. And yeah, and the only reason I make so much at a time is some of it is so we can have leftovers, and then I also have these little great glass lunch containers that I put different dinners in and stick them in the freezer. And so when we get up and I pack Mr. Rain's lunch in the morning, I'll grab one of those out of the freezer and stick them in there, and he has a good variety of all our different dinners in there, and I try to keep them mixed up. So yeah, that's why I like to make a whole big pan at once, even though it's just 2 of us. So there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and that you'll give this rocket stove cooking thing a try if you have one, and if you don't, well, consider making one or buying one, whatever works best for you, and have fun with it. It's just another backup way to cook when you need to. And it's very efficient and takes very little fuel source, and like I said, just nothing but scraps usually. So thanks for watching, and God bless.